Tripping Through Time by Larson. Next party I work is a week later, and also like 600 years ago. It's some famous battle, big muddy hillside, people clanking around in armor, arrows flying everywhere. The rain sleeting down doesn't get through the bubble, but some of the guests are going around with fashionable black umbrellas anyways. I'm a little distracted tonight, and Clay notices. She intercepts me right as I run out of deconstructed patatas bravas.
You good?
She asks. I nod.
Your mom good?
I don't want to burden Clay with this shit. Not when she's already burdened with her own shit. But she has those big, soulful eyes you just want to confess stuff to. Tested red yesterday morning, I say. Not ID'd yet. I keep thinking I must have brought something in, you know? I whirl my finger. Like, maybe even something from here.
No way,
she says.
Detox, remember? And you wash hard, girl. You wash better than my brother, and he's a nurse.
Thanks, Clay. I pause. Your parents okay?
Hold up and healthy, yeah,
she says.
Just jealous I'm out here breaking physics while they stuck inside playing canasta.
She spots someone's glass running low and darts over before it hits critical empty. I circle back to the kitchenette to restock my tray. I'm just starting to feel better when a soldier eats shit right in front of me, staggering out of the mist and collapsing just outside the chronofield. He's so full of arrows, it should be funny. He's got 6, no 7. One's broken off in his belly. But his blood is bright red, leaking down into the mud, and the shimmer distorts his face, but for a second, I swear he's staring right at me. I know he's been dead for hundreds of years already. He doesn't look dead, though. He looks desperate. It's not funny. A drunk man shows up, one of the guests who was placing bets earlier on who was going to get trampled by their own horse. He has a wine stain on his crisp white sleeve. "Oh my God, that's horrible," he says. "Hold this. I want a souvenir." He hands me his glass, sloshing half of it into the dirt. I'm too shook to do anything but take it. The functional part of my brain figures he wants to take a snap of himself with the dying guy in the background. But instead, he slides this metallic prong out of his sleeve and pushes it against the chronofield. A poison yellow warning hollow pops up. He shunts it aside, keeps pushing, and suddenly, a small hexagonal chunk solidifies in the shimmery surface of the bubble. The node falls away. The guest gives a grunt of satisfaction, eyes fixed on the arrow sticking out of the dying guy's back. Heath, what are you doing, man?" His slightly more sober buds have spotted us. What's he doing?" Heath snaps a glove on, wriggles his fingers, and shoves his arm through the chronofield. Everybody shouts and jumps and rushes forward at the same time. Everybody except me. Because I'm still standing there holding Heath's wine glass and watching the soldier bleed out. The shouting cuts off. Heath is staring at his arm, which is intact on the other side of the bubble, with that drunk, bleary kind of self-amusement. Someone does a nervous laugh. Then Heath starts to scream. His lanky arm is whipping around like a popped balloon, and somehow it's shrinking like one too, collapsing in on itself, bones crunching bones and skin slurping skin. He staggers back, and only a stump comes with him. He's screaming. I'm screaming. Everyone's screaming. The little Metadrone me and Clay helped load up comes whirling over to see what's going on. It clamps itself to the blood-spraying end of Heath's gnawed arm. One of his idiot friends is shaking me, like, "Why didn't you stop him? You overserved him!" Which is so fucking absurd I will laugh if my throat ever gets unstuck. Mrs. Silverite sweeps in and detaches him, shoves him away. "Are you okay?" she asks, and it takes me a second to get she's asking me. "Yeah," I say. "Yes, ma'am." We both look down at Heath, who is still writhing around on the dirt. The thing that he used to open the hole, the metallic prong, is lying beside him. "What a fucking clown," Mrs. Silverite says. "One in every family, I suppose." She gives me a pat on the arm, then turns to her clustered guests. "The party's ending early today, darlings."
Evrim's Children, Ray Nayler. Man is a creature who can get used to anything, and I believe that is the very best way of defining him. Fyodor Dostoevsky, Memoirs from the House of the Dead. Alarms overlapping into cacophony. A blob of violet fire drifting past, then another and another, splashing and spreading against the bulkheads, igniting electrical panels with a smell of ozone and burning petrochemical compounds. Evrim tumbled uncontrollably.
Failure!
One alarm babbled.
Systems failure!
No, Evrim thought. Not failure. Catastrophe. Apocalypse. Evrim's shattered, severed leg drifted past. As the oxygen drained away, the sound of the alarms dimmed, growing more and more remote. Consciousness as well began to slip. Then Evrim's comms crackled.
Evrim, where are you? What happened? Evrim? Oh, God, where am I?
400 years later. Dawn aboard the interstellar ship Fram came to a single HAB module. The rest of the ship remained in darkness, except for the ghost glow of interface diodes leaking through wires like moonlight through winter trees. The HAB module swung like a stone in a sling at the end of an armature along one of Fram's branches. At night, its nanodiode wall coating flickered in a simulation of candlelight. More than 5 centuries ago, a team of scientists had determined candlelight was comforting to the human mind. Now, in this arbitrary dawn of a 24-hour cycle long unlinked to anything on Earth, the lighting shifted from candlelight to a blue-toned simulation of an Earth sunrise, accompanied by recorded birdsong. The volume of the birdsong increased until one could almost believe that they were there, beyond the hull, audible somehow in the vacuum of space. The increase in light and sound failed to wake the HAB module's lone occupant, tangled in a nest of blankets in her bunk. Finally, a voice came over the intercom, fuzzed with distortion.
Your breakfast will still be warm if you can manage to get to the galley in the next quarter hour or so.
A face finally poked out from the blankets, teenaged, honey-colored, squinty with sleep. Okay, I'm on my way. May untangled herself from sleep and clambered down from her bunk. She yawned, stretched, scratched, and pulled on the nearest coverall from a pile on the floor. Sleepily, she climbed the ladder out of the HAB module, through the hollow rotating armature, and into the ship's trunk, instinctively readjusting to the changing level of centrifugal simulated gravity as it faded to zero. As May floated through the main trunk of Fram, nanodiodes in the walls responded to her presence, a ring of light around her that slid along the walls like a lantern lowered down a well. The diodes illuminated serpent lines of communicating cables, ladder rungs, handholds, emergency aid stations, access panels, circular hatches leading off into branches, before plunging all of it back into darkness. May arrested her fluid passage through the ship's main artery with a grasp at a handhold on the corridor wall as she passed hatch 126-1. The hatch was battered and scratched, fire-scarred around its orifice, jaggedly welded shut. But at some time since she had passed this way last night, the seam of the weld had been broken. The red light in the hatch's center indicated it was still locked, but now the door's access light blinked, waiting for a code. So, today really was the day. The galley rotated around Fram's trunk like a bracelet around a wrist, generating just enough centrifugal force to keep Ursat's orange juice in a cup. Evrim inclined their copper-gold epicene head toward May as she descended into the room. Evrim was cooking by hand, turning flapjacks over on an electric griddle that only saw use once or twice in a year. They were dressed, as always, in a silvery gray microfiber jumpsuit, Once the jumpsuit wore out, it would be recycled and dutifully recreated in the matter organizer. Evrim was written on a Velcro patch on the left side of their chest. The patch was an ancient artifact, having survived many jumpsuit reincarnations.
You've made it in time. Either that or I waited a little bit for you, because I know how little you like mornings.
I suspect the latter is the truth.
I suspect it is.
May could never really conceive of Evrim as being both the ship Fram and the ship's android avatar who stood in front of her. She simply couldn't hold the idea in her mind. She watched Evrim's immaculate movements as they turned the flapjacks. No, for her, Evrim was separate from Fram. Evrim had carried her around for months in a silvery gray papoose that matched their jumpsuit. Evrim had held her hand and taught her to walk on the grass of the garden ring. Evrim had tucked her in at night and stayed with her in her habitat when she was frightened of the creaking and groaning sounds Fram made as it plunged through the void. Evrim cooked flapjacks for her by hand on every birthday and at Christmas. Tall, slender, copper gold and smooth, eternally patient Evrim. When she was very small, May had imagined Fram as a blossoming tree of life, silver gray or copper gold, the colors of Evrim. May's first ride in a maintenance shuttle when she was 7 had shown her the truth. The shuttle's lights played across a ruin, a stump hurtling silently through the void above the tangled roots of its drive. Fram's exterior was like a lightning-shattered tree. The stumps of amputated branches protruded from a trunk riven with scar tissue, welds, and grafts. No, Evrim could not be Fram, because Fram was a thing of nightmares.